Hello, everyone. Welcome to MCD Live session today. And today, as you already know, for those of you who might have read the title, we are going to talk about something we really connect on a human level. On every day, we get to, have some form of interaction with this concept. And this is okay. Let me just add. Yeah. So this is um a discussion about how we can stay grounded, how we can stay calm, even when we are, trying to be there for someone, when we are trying to be there for someone who may be in a crisis. And it's very important that as human beings, of course, we are social animals. We tend to connect with human beings on a deeper level, but in the middle of that journey, in the middle of that process, we tend to lose ourselves as well. And it's very important, really important that in our brain's need for connection and in our process of you know noticing other people's emotions, we try to you know not stop ourselves from feeling. But even when you are feeling deeply, even when you are feeling like that, you do not lose yourself. Even though your intention is, of course, to support someone, you don't end up losing yourself, right? Like if you see someone drowning, and if you don't know how to swim, and you just jump in the ocean to save that person, it's just going to be two people who might be drowning. It's not going to be any survival, right, whatsoever. So, what's the better approach in such a situation? By building the ability to help people without drowning yourself in that process, by staying grounded. We have discussed the science of empathy in a lot of our sessions. We have discussed what empathy feels like. But today we will be focusing primarily on how to stay grounded. So I want you to take a minute or 2 minutes so we can set out an intention and also allow ourselves to be comfortable and be present during the session. So I want you all to lay your feet, put your feet on the ground and relax your shoulders and place one hand flat on your chest and try to be as comfortable as you can be with your body, and try to notice the warmth of your hands. And at the same time, I want you to notice your heartbeat. The heartbeat is yours, the body is yours, your heart open and feet on the ground. Your hand, one of your hands, it should be on your chest. You should be able to feel your heartbeat, notice your heartbeat. Your body is yours, your heartbeat is yours, and so are your emotions. They are also yours. So take a slow, deep breath in for 5 counts. One, two, three, four, five. And now slowly breathe out on 5 counts. One, two, three, 4, 5. So there's a difference between 5 seconds and 5 counts. So let's breathe in again on a count of five. One, two, three, 4, 5. And now breathe out. One, two, three, 4, 5. Try to notice your breaths. Try to notice what happens inside your body when you think about your emotions, about someone you love, someone you feel safe with. You don't have to fix anything, you don't have to do anything. You just focus on this current moment. So, how do we how do we stay grounded in moments like, where we feel like we might drown, where we may feel like we want to help other people, but at the same time, we want to stay grounded, we want to stay calm. Now, many people actually believe that empathy is limited to the idea of simply understanding other people's feeling, but empathy is actually a much more complex process, which of course involves our body, our mind, our nervous system. So of course, everything gets to have that impact of what other people around us are feeling when we are empathizing with them. And it a lot of us who may, when we enter a room, when there is stress, when there is tension, we tend to, absorb the tension in that environment, the environmental temperature, in that moment without anybody saying a word, because some of us are actually, we may identify as people who may have higher levels of empathy than compared to other people. So, it's very important to understand that empathy is not a bad thing, it's not a weakness. And for many people who are highly empathetic, we may actually, at one point in our lives feel upset about that idea, upset about, how as highly empathetic people around us tend to take an advantage of us. Or maybe when we try to empathize with others, we may, end up in burnout. We may feel tired, we may feel exhausted, and there is no way out for us. A lot of people, they tend to experience what is known as empathy fatigue or empathy burnout, which means that you are at a point where you tend to avoid consciously you consciously avoid feeling empathy for other people because you feel like this is causing you a lot, this is costing you a lot, this is costing you your mental health. And that's why you need to practice grounded compassion in that moment. Grounded compassion, which means that you are understanding other people, and at the same time you are keeping your feet on the ground and it's not impacting you to a point where it's costing you your mental health, where you try to distinguish between um, empathy and just giving up on your own mental health, right? You distinguish that, where people, um, people actually feel like they have absorbed the energies and absorbed the anxiety off from someone else. When other person is, sharing their emotions, we feel like we have absorbed their pain, absorbed their difficulties into our bodies. Some um, some people, they tend to become flooded physiologically. They may feel like they are overwhelmed, there is tension building up in their bodies, they may feel like they are sweating, their heartbeat is racing, there is stress going on in their body. So all of these are signs that there's something going on. And you may actually, begin to notice these things when you actually pay attention to these. The problem actually begins when you do not notice it. Um, because in moments like that, when you are in a situation like that, where you are having physiological tension, where you are feeling like you have absorbed everything, it may actually feel confusing for you that why is this happening. It is happening because you have unconsciously internalized other people's emotions and prices in your body. The key part is for you to distinguish that time at that time, and the difference between helping someone out and giving yourself in that moment. And you do that by practicing co-regulation. Now, neuroscience tells us that people regulate themselves and they also regulate other people. You don't stay limited to regulating your own self. Now, if you have had a time in your life where you were very anxious and someone actually spoke to you slowly, listened to you without interrupting you, and you didn't, have, they didn't just jump into fixing things for you. And, when it feels like when we are actually jumping to fixing things for people, it feels like we are actually doing something for them. But sometimes people do not want you to, fix something for them. They just want you to be present. So if you have been in a situation like this where you were upset or anxious, someone just sat down with you, they listened to you, and they paid attention to you. They did not interrupt. They stayed present. They listened to you, and it was visible from their presence that they were actually there for you rather than just listening to you without understanding your pain. So that is more helpful than you becoming overwhelmed by the situation and you trying to spend the rest of your day trying to find solutions for that. Because sometimes people want the kind of empathy where you just listen, where you just stay present without doing anything. And that makes more sense than you actually, um jumping into fixing things. So what are the things that matter here? Your facial expressions, your breathing, your tone of voice, your pace at which you are speaking, right? All of these things are what makes the other person feel your energy. If your tone is calm, they will know it. If your facial expressions are tensed, they may tend to feel like they sharing their pain with you is actually causing you pain rather than making you help them out, right? So if your facial expressions are tensed, they will notice. That is going to, of course, affect them. And if your tone of voice has changed, your breathing, if they notice that you're breathing heavily, they will notice that you are becoming more tensed than them. And they are going to notice that thing. So, all of these things, when they are at a balanced tone, when they are in a balanced way and your tone is calm, your facial expressions are relaxed, and the pace at which you are talking, it's relaxed. You're not talking fast, you're talking calmly at the required pace. The other person is going to notice that. And it is nothing less than empathy for sure if you are keeping these things grounded. And you don't do that automatically. It doesn't happen automatically. It requires a lot of practice. And by practicing mindfulness, you can actually bring yourself to a point like that. You can actually bring yourself to a point where you can balance and manage your tone, balance and manage the pace you are talking. You pause before answering the person, you pause before giving them a solution. Because we don't pause, we just run into absorbing someone's storm. And before we do that, we need to learn the skill of co regulation. And this co regulation skill can be learned by practicing the skill of pre absorption pause before we start absorbing other people's emotions. Research actually tells us that it's much easier to regulate ourselves before we become naturally overwhelmed. Although we feel like it's easier to get anxious, it's also easier to get calm. So it's better that when we are in a situation like that where we have to help someone out, we got to relax ourselves. We got to put our feet on the ground. And as we did in the beginning, place your hand on your chest and silently tell yourself that I will feel with them. I will not become them. I will feel with them, but I will not become them. I will feel with them. I will not become them. And this one sentence can actually, this is one sentence, if you keep on repeating this to yourself, I will feel with them. I will understand them, but I will not become them. My emotions are mine. My body is mine. and I don't have to become them in order to be empathetic. This repetition, the repetition is going to train your brain into not becoming unempathetic, but into becoming grounded in a situation like that. Instead of you getting in a situation where you end up drowning. So, whenever you are interacting, try to notice. It's very important. Notice what is your breathing pattern. If you feel like your breathing pattern is intense, take some space. Go away. Take some space for yourself. Calm yourself down by doing this pre-absorption pause. You cannot help someone. You cannot be present for someone if your breathing is intense, you are tensed yourself, your shoulders are tense, and you are holding your breath, right? And if you are noticing these things, you will get the opportunity to return back, even if in the middle of that conversation you do feel like you're getting overwhelmed. If you notice these things before your interaction with the person, you may definitely be able to come back to normal instead of spending the whole day thinking about it. So you need to separate yourself from the other person. For people who are highly empathetic, it's difficult, but it's very important before starting up an interaction that you actually try to have this pre absorption pause. Notice your tone, notice your expressions, notice your body language, notice your shoulders, notice your breathing, notice your heartbeat, and calm yourself by taking deep breaths and becoming aware of your of your surroundings, and reaffirm yourselves. Affirmations are scientifically proven to be helpful, and once they are wired in your brain that I will understand others, I will feel others, I will feel for them, but I'm not going to become them. My emotions are mine and theirs are theirs. There's a separate there is a divider between my emotions and the person I'm going to interact with. So that means there needs to be a distinguishment between their feelings and my feelings. It doesn't have to get jumbled up, and you can do that by practicing pre-absorption pause, as we did in the beginning, that mindfulness activity. So this is how you can actually start um with keeping your empathy in its place and also being yourself instead of getting drowned in that process. So I would like you all to do a small reflection. You can answer this by sharing it with me in the session or in the comments who will be watching this later, or for your own self you can write it down on your paper. It's very important to reflect about where we are standing, where we are in this whole situation. What happened? Are we actually practicing this pre-absorption pause? If not, let's let's try to remember the last time we had an interaction like this. And um, who in your life do you tend to absorb most strongly? It could be your spouse, it could be your parent, it could be your children. Who in your life is it who you tend to absorb most strongly? Who is it? And when now, because we now know what absorption can look like. Absorption can look like you feeling drowned in that process. The conversation happened yesterday at 2 p.m. and you're still thinking about it the next day, 5 p.m. That's absorption. And not, you're not just thinking, your body is overwhelmed. You're not able to function well. You are completely dysfunctional. And you're now ending up in empathy burnout. You don't want to empathize with anyone now because it's costing you your mental health. So you need to figure out whether you're absorbing or you are empathizing. And you can do that by doing this pre absorption pause. So, first of all, I want you to answer this question: who in your life do you tend to absorb the most strongly? If you do so, if you feel like you are doing that or it is happening in your life. And when you do that, what happens in your body? What goes on in your body? What is it? And can you actually remember a time when you supported someone, when you empathized with someone? The first question was whether you are absorbing someone strongly, and if there is someone, then who is it? And Abhilasha just shared, I absorb positive as well. Yes, the positive part is good. Something that makes you productive, it's good to internalize positive feelings. It is a good thing to absorb the positivity. It is good thing to internalize the good parts. But when it comes to overwhelming emotions, as therapists, especially, I will give the example. We tend to hear different stories throughout the day. And if we keep on, if I'm listening to 3 to 4 clients per day, um, and if I don't stay grounded, and if I internalize the emotions of the first client I had in the day, I'm not going to be productive or available or present for the rest of the three that I'll be talking to in the next whatever hours. And it's not sustainable in the long run. This is what we refer to, as the emotional empathy. Emotional empathy is when you drown yourself in feeling empathy for other people, and you do not have a difference between, in your mind you don't have a difference, you don't have the separation between other people's emotions and our own emotions. And helping sounds like something, where you have to give in yourself, but that's not how it works. It's not sustainable in the long run. And as I use the word burnout, when you burn out, you're going to purposely avoid feeling empathy for people. It does happen. It's a concept. There's been lots of research on this, that people who have been doing this, ending up in burnout, they tend to avoid feeling empathy for everyone altogether because it is costing them a lot. So it's very important to stop yourself from the long term cost of it and practicing this pre absorption pause that can actually help you out with keeping yourself grounded and calm in a situation like this. So the first question I asked you to write down was about um, whether you are absorbing someone strongly, and if yes, who is it? Then I asked you about what happens when you do that. And the third question was if you have actually been there for someone, where you supported them and you remained connected to yourself, where you didn't have to give up on your sense of sanity to be there for someone. Then what exactly was there at that point that made you feel grounded? What was it? What was that one thing that helped you stay grounded? And what might change in your relationship? The last question, what might change in your relationship if you could, care deeply without becoming emotionally depleted? A lot of people, they empathize, but they don't drown. They don't have the physiological show of it. They are not drowning. They are acting normal. They are functional because they are grounded. And that is understood by the people around us. This person is very unempathetic because they don't have that drowning process. And that is the misunderstanding. That is the misunderstanding we have to clear about empathy, that you do not have to drown yourself. Drowning yourself means you are drowning the other person along with it. Someone came to you for help. If a therapist starts drowning in that state, is he going to be functional enough to help the other person? No. You need to be fine from here to help someone out. You cannot do that until or unless you are in a state of doing so. So it's very important to notice. It is very important to stay present in that moment. So Vilasha has shared something. Once when I was undergraduate student and I was listening to patients in OPD, I still remember one person who was, say, got into severe depression due to betrayal by his wife. And that story still I remember. And that time I was into it for many years. Yes. This is an example that we tend to become so emotionally connected to our clients that you tend to remember them for years. And especially me too, I still remember a lot of my clients even now, and their stories remind me of how far I have come. Because the beginning of my career looked like me being in a state of drowning, and that costed me a lot. So by by now, I can go on with, 3, 4, 5, even 6 people in a day for sessions, and eventually, by the end of the day, I'm not in the same state as I used to be 6 years ago when I was, working as an intern. And it's a very different scenario altogether because practice makes you perfect. Practice is what makes you. This is a very important note for therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, and caregivers. Caregivers are, for them, it's extremely important because caregiver burnout is a very, very well researched phenomena now, and it's very important to talk about that. And empathy fatigue, empathy burnout among caregivers is very, very high. So it's very important to learn about this and stay grounded even in a situation like this. So hopefully tomorrow we will be doing some practical activities and learning about some tools regarding this concept. So anybody has any kind of questions, they can share it and then we can call it a day. All right, I guess that is it. So I hope to see you all tomorrow at the same time, on the same link. See you all tomorrow. Have a great day ahead. Bye bye.